One of my subscribers recently asked me, why am I so obsessed with soap? Well, from my perspective, I'm not obsessed. I just really like bar soap. But I can maybe see how that might be the case. It's a long story. It starts around 2007, 2008. And at that time, I had a kick-ass position. I would just come into work all day and I would sit around doing nothing, basically. And this was before the era of smartphone. And I didn't always have someone to talk to, so I'd have to find a way to pass the time. And during 2007, 2008, if you might recall, we were at the beginning of the financial crisis, which was pretty exciting. I would purchase the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Economist, and sit and read economic news all day. And I began to wonder, what would happen if we here in the United States entered a Great Depression? How would you survive that? What's important? Well, rather than look back to the 1930s, which is a really long time ago, I began to research recent history and found two countries that went through a relatively recent economic calamity. And the first one would be Argentina, which had a financial crisis in 2002, and then the former Soviet Union, now called today the Russian Federation. From the 1950s to about the mid-1980s, the Soviet Union was a communist country, which meant they were a centralized, controlled economy. And what happened in that economy was they spent all of their resources not on consumer goods, but on military hardware. So that left the consumer side of the economy with very little selection. Did you know during the Soviet-Russian times, there were only 3 different types of bars in the entire country? That's it. 3 different types of bar soaps. And they weren't even that good. It was considered a luxury item if you could have imported soap. But the common man, the common guy, could never really get access to that. It was only the higher-ups who could get the imported soaps. One of the interesting things is that when they would have trade missions or cultural exchanges and the Russians would come to the United States, and there are a lot of stories about this, they would inevitably be brought to an American supermarket where they would see just aisle after aisle of foods. Chinese foods, Italian, Mexican, you name it, we had it. We didn't have just one type of spaghetti sauce, we had 5. We didn't have 3 types of bar soaps, we had 20, and they were good. You see, in Russia, during that time period, and also there was no body wash back then, you would have to wait in line for hours and hours and hours to go into the supermarket. And there wasn't selection. There was one type of flour, there was one type of rice, there was one type of spaghetti sauce. What they had was what you got, and usually it was low quality. At any rate, they were just thrilled. So when they could get a bar of Dove here in the United States and use it, it was just an amazing experience for them because the Dove bar was a high quality consumer good, which they could never have. So yeah, I guess you'd say I internalized a little bit of that longing for the consumer goods that the Russian people had. And yeah, you know, that is part of the reason why I've always been so excited for bar soap. The other half would be Argentina. In 2002, Argentina, a country in South America, entered into hyperinflation. And that is a state of economic calamity where your money buys you less and less every day. Let's say I had $1 and I went to the dollar store. I could buy an item at the dollar store for $1. But tomorrow, when you go to the dollar store, that $1 is not going to buy you the same item as the day before. You will then need $2 to purchase the same item. And just imagine that cascading, becoming more and more. By the end of the week, you need $5 to purchase what at the beginning of the week cost you $1. And that happened for everyone in the country. They all wised up, and people were like, well, shit, my money is going to be worthless by the end of the month. So what they would do is they would raid the stores. They would go down to their Walmart and they would purchase every good in the store. And I'm using that as an example. They didn't have Walmarts back then, and they used pesos, not dollars. But at any rate, they would go into the Walmart and they would strip the entire store of everything. There'd be nothing left in the store. And the stores would stay like that. A shipment of goods would come in, somebody would go out and they would buy every last one. If there was 20 shirts on the rack, a guy would come and he would buy all 20 shirts. Not that he needed 20 shirts, just the fact that his money was going to be worth even less by the end of the week. So he would buy the 20 shirts, and then he would trade those shirts for things that he needed. Let's say he needed a hat. He would find a guy who had a hat. He'd say, I've got a shirt. I'll give you this shirt for your hat. They would trade. The barter system was in effect for a little while in the country. And it's really fascinating. But long story short, essential consumer goods such as toilet paper and bar soaps were in short supply. Imagine that you needed soap and you walked into the store and there was no soap. You could go a month without soap. Just getting up and taking a shower with only water day after day. So when they got their hands on BarSoap, it was great. It was like being liberated. You would step into that shower. It wasn't just getting up to get yourself clean. It was getting into that shower to have a phenomenal experience, to feel good about yourself, to enjoy the aroma, to enjoy the feeling of the soap on your skin. And then you would share that with your family. The whole family would share that bar of soap. Everyone would get to use it, experience it. And it's something that we absolutely take for granted here in the United States, because we've got soaps, we've had soaps, there's soaps in the stores. It's something that we've never thought about. But when I began to see bar soap through other people's eyes, it really made me appreciative of just what we've got. And that's why I try to pass along some of that enthusiasm to those of you at home, because we do have such an amazing selection. There are all these different types of qualities of soaps, some good, some not so good, but all of them better than the Russian soaps from the Soviet era. And so yeah, I get really excited about it, and I love to talk about it. And that's why. Well, thank you for joining me today. I will see you next time.